What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by DraftKings. I am your host, Evan Abrams, and I'm joined, as always, by Brandon Anderson for our NFL recap show. We will discuss everything we saw today for NFL Week 4, and we will look ahead briefly to Monday Night Football. We got two games this week, so that's going to be a little more bets there, which is going to be fun on that end. Plus, we will get to Brandon's hot read for Week 5 coming up next week. So, Brandon, just off the top, give me your overall feeling, because I feel like last week it was the crazy witching hour. We had different stuff going on. What the heck did we see in Week 4?
I feel like it's an NFL law at this point that when we get our first Sunday morning game of the year, the Sunday night game has to go to overtime just to give us the complete marathon. Today for me was escalator day. I finally hit some of those props and escalators. The early slate was the opposite of last week. There was no real witching hour. We did get a little wonkiness at the end, but our recap today I think will be pretty backloaded because we got more interesting games late afternoon and then just the weird one to end the night. All the hullabaloo about Micah Parsons. Then he was barely anything until the one moment when they needed him to be. So we'll get to that one.
Yeah, you actually just mentioned it. This might be the longest day in NFL history. I feel like we talked about this maybe last year when we had the early game and then the late game went to overtime. But today we might have seen history. Maybe we'll see it tweeted afterwards. But let me go through a few of my stats here before we dive into Sunday Night Football. So I found this pretty interesting. So the Colts didn't win and obviously didn't cover today against the Rams. So right now the Broncos are the only team defeated against the spread. They're 0-3, and we have no teams undefeated. So if Denver covers on Monday Night Football, it'll be just the third time since 1990 that we don't have an offer on either side. O ATS and O on the other side, defeated and undefeated. So I found that kind of interesting and just the parity that's going on in the NFL right now. We thought we might have gotten a 4-0 ATS Colts team, but we did not. Quickly, in terms of Action Network betting data, just the kind of a difficult season for the public. So 60+% of tickets, 9-24 against the spread, under 500 each of the 4 weeks, and 70% or more, 2-10 against the spread. There are a lot of people on the Packers tonight. We had a tie. They did not cover. And then two more for you. So through 62 games before Monday Night Football, we've got 31 overs and 31 unders, which is just fun in itself. So we've seen some parity in terms of ATS and some balance. And then one more, favorites of 6+ points, now 15-2-1 straight up this year. The one with Green Bay, and we have the two losses, but that is the fewest losses straight up for 6+ point favorites through 4 games since 1979. So we have been talking about this kind of early on when there was no upsets. Well, through 4 weeks, we still only have 2. And the tie tonight. So little parity there, but let's get into the Sunday nighter. So Green Bay, Dallas. I've never said this one, I don't think, in the year or two or whatever I've been doing this recap pod, but we have a tie, 40-40, no winner. Dallas covers +6.5. Total sales over 47. Green Bay was 3-0 to the under entering this game and then got the complete opposite showing. Maybe even the game of the year. I don't know. People talking about Buffalo and Baltimore, which is also pretty fantastic. But I believe at the end of this game, and I actually didn't even do the tally at the end, but I think we got 7 consecutive scores with a lead change right up until the end of the game there, which to me, just absolutely insane. So I'll let you kind of take it from there. I have a few other thoughts, but the end of this game in terms of what we got was just something I've almost never seen.
Yeah, it's apparently our first walk-off tie since 1973. So we had that. I'm sure it's got to be a scoregami. Our first ever 40-40 tie. Certainly it's the second highest scoring tie in NFL history. No defense allowed in this game. It seemed early on like Green Bay was going to roll. They get the touchdown. They get the stop. They get another touchdown. And it's like, all right, 14-0. Oh, just wait. Extra point gets blocked, which apparently is just the thing we're doing these days. Blocking every kick goes the other way. And most of the game, I'm on Packers. I'm like, great, that stupid play is going to cost me the cover because that's a 3-point swing. 1 off of Green Bay, 2 for Dallas. Didn't end up costing me the cover. The Packers cost me the cover, as it turns out. But that it did, it cost Green Bay the win ultimately here. It cost them overtime. It cost them the field goal that they ended up kicking there, or I guess, however the math gets there. Defense optional, 56% success rate for the Packers for the entire game, 55% for the Cowboys. Packers on late downs were averaging 1.4 EPA per play for the entire game, 86% success rate. Just like they could do anything they wanted and still didn't win the game, which is ridiculous. End of the half was the really big play. The Packers give up a touchdown. Clearly they're like kind of annoyed and like, okay, let's try to go get some points back. We should only be ahead 14-9. Spoiler, how about 14-16 instead? Because Jordan Love gets stripped, and the Cowboys score the very next play. So that's basically 10-point swing that Green Bay mistakes gave up. The 3 points on the swing from the extra point, and then LaFleur even said going to halftime, our defense is playing great. It was then, not after. But that 7 points they gave up, that was on the offense, really, which I think I agree with. Obviously, the big story for the night is Micah Parsons until he was a non-story for the night. He did nothing the entire game. He had 2 assisted tackles. That's it until we get to overtime. Cowboys are down on like the 5. Dak Prescott rolls out and looks like he's going to walk into the end zone and walk it off. And that's the one play Micah Parsons catches him from behind. They give him the sack. We'll take it. We bet the sack, so we'll take the 0-yard sack, I guess, if that's a thing. I honestly, early in the game, I genuinely watched the game. I was like, okay, I don't think the Cowboys even want to win this. I think Jerry just said, pass the ball as fast as you can. Do not let Micah get a sack at all costs. That's what it felt like until suddenly Dak started lighting up the defense. George Pickens, monster night. 2 touchdowns for Pickens, 3 for Dobbs, 2 for Jacobs. Jordan Love and Dak Prescott both over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Just back and forth, absolute fireworks. Weird overtime at the end. I don't know why in the world the Packers would give Dallas the ball when they win the coin toss. Like, neither team had a defensive stop since the first drive of the second half. So I don't know why you wouldn't expect to just go down and score. Green Bay probably would have, but just runs out of time there at the end and almost literally runs out of time. Probably should have. They got lucky with the 1 second on the road. Dallas clock operator, what are you doing? Take the time off. You got the win. And instead, we get a tie. It just wonky game that, we're all lucky to watch it, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point on the clock operator. I feel like you got to, come on, one more tick. That's a good one. On the road, I don't know how many times you're going to see that across all of sports. That guy's, that's a difficult decision.
You got to at least take the time and make the refs review it. Like, at least do a solid and make the refs make the decision.
For anyone who's just like a box score watcher, especially after Sunday Night Football, I feel like this is one advanced and normal where you just look across and you're like, how did either team either win or lose this game? Just because the number of red zone trips and the fact that Dallas 1 sack and no turnovers, and they end up not even getting the victory. I look at it from Green Bay's standpoint where it's not great that you lost the game last week the way you played it in a low-scoring game, and then you couldn't come away with the win this week in this type of game. It's not, as someone who's holding a Super Bowl ticket for Green Bay and was touting them a lot in the preseason, it's a little concerning in terms of how we've seen them play over the last 2 weeks. The thing that hit me the most was, okay, so Green Bay's up 13-0, and then you allow 13 points in the final 5:48. It was 14 points, final 5:09, I believe. Last week, you allow 13 points in the final 5:48. So it seems like some of these points are coming in clusters. Not exactly great, especially in these key moments, end of half, end of game, just not ideal. In terms of the game itself, I looked this up. So 33.5 points would be the over-under margin, the amount of points that went over the total tonight. That was the biggest on a Monday Night Football game since 2020. So been 5 years since we saw kind of these fireworks and explosions. I also kind of think it's interesting looking forward just a tiny bit, because I think that's probably the most you can take out of this type of game, which is Green Bay now has the bye. So, early on in this game, this felt like, okay, we need to come away with this one. We need to look good. And then everything kind of went haywire. After the bye, Cincinnati, Arizona, Pittsburgh. So to me, things are still looking up. They have some time now to look over things and try to make things better. But without CeeDee Lamb, it's hard to really have too much of an opinion on this one in terms of at least Green Bay's defense, which feels like the biggest storyline.
Yeah, you can't be real impressed with Green Bay's defense when you're giving up points left and right to just, to Dak and Pickens, basically. And Dallas does continue to run the ball really well. I tweeted about this, that they went out and got Clayton Adams, who was the run coordinator from the Cardinals a season ago. And he's the offensive coordinator now. Shoddy, I think, is calling the plays, but we're seeing that result play out. We're seeing Dallas effectively run the ball week after week, even though nobody really thought much of Javonte Williams. But just the scheme, the way that even the injured offensive line is creating room, and Green Bay had been shutting teams down, and then Dallas just couldn't get stopped basically the whole second half. I had the same note about the upcoming schedule. Pittsburgh, you mentioned, that's obviously the Aaron Rodgers game, so that's kind of the next big emotional game for this team. But Bengals, Cardinals, Steelers, Panthers, this team should win those 4 games. But they should have won this game, and they should have won the Browns game too, and they should have been 8-0 after those games. But now they're going to have at most 6 wins. I'm real annoyed. It's September, and we have to do the something and 1 for both of these teams the whole rest of the year. Like every tiebreaker scenario, every division scenario, my instinct is that this is worse for the Packers and better for the Cowboys. Just because the Packers, I expected the Packers, I still expect, I think, the Packers to be contending for the top of the NFC. A loss is closer, or sorry, a tie is closer to a loss from that standpoint. You're hoping to contend with the Eagles, with the Buccaneers, with whoever comes out of the NFC West. You're looking for that top NFC seed, even the Lions in your own division. You need wins. So a tie in Green Bay's case is not a win. In Dallas's case, a tie not being a loss to the Packers, that's a pretty good outcome here. Dallas, here's their next stretch. Jets, Panthers, Commanders, Broncos, Cardinals, Raiders. That's winnable games if this offense plays this well. It's losable games because they have to play defense too. But I will do an article this week on power ranking the 2-2 teams, which if the Cowboys had won, both of these teams would be. I'm going to have to decide now, does either one of these count? Because we got the stupid tie in there, but I was looking ahead on both schedules. Either one of the teams getting a win was kind of set up to make a really good run here. Now it's a tie. I don't really know where we go from there, but I don't think it's a disaster for Packers. But definitely when you play that well offensively and when you have that much of an advantage on the other side of the ball, you have to win this game.
Yeah, I think you're right when you say the tie will mean more for Green Bay down the road because, well, expectations, but also the teams around them in terms of the wins. But I'll say this, 4th quarter or later in this game, I believe they trailed 3 times. They're probably just lucky to get a tie. So I think either way you look at it, it felt so back and forth that this outcome, at least because, I don't know how much I believe in Dallas. So I don't even know how much this tie is really going to matter at the end of the season versus Green Bay. This is obviously a large situation going forward. All right, let's keep rolling. Colts, Rams. So Rams win this game 27-20. Covers a 3.5. Total goes under 49.5. Colts were, I said it off the top, 3-0 against the spread, last undefeated team entering this one. I guess this quote just is the way I felt as this game kind of matriculated down, which is the Colts are just missing a quarterback. I guess we've kind of been saying that for years now, and I guess the consistency feels like it was there with the Colts. And even though Daniel Jones, I believe, has a few turnovers, at some times in this game he kind of, feels like he was turning back into a pumpkin a little bit. I feel like the Colts are contending with almost anybody in the NFL because they're getting what they've been looking for, which a great team around just a consistent quarterback on some level. Now, Indy has 3 turnovers. They have 11 penalties. They lost the yards per play and had a chance to win multiple times at the end. So to me, they made mistakes, but I still see some progress going forward with a team that now has the Raiders and Cardinals coming up. So really at this point the Colts can be whatever they want to be because, I feel like they're playing up to the echelon of like the Rams, which I think on the other side, they look great every single week to week. I don't know how much I learn about the Rams because they're so consistent. Like the offense is looking good. Puka's putting up ridiculous numbers. Their defense gets pressure. Like, what did you take away from a game like this?
Yeah, I think really similar to what you're saying. I think you take away that both teams are probably going to feel pretty good about this one. Obviously, you want to win the game, but for the Colts to hang in with what looks every bit like a Super Bowl contender in the Rams right now, and they led 20-13 late. Indianapolis did, so they could have won the game. I think the right team did win the game. The Rams had 129 more
I
yards,
agree.
7 more first downs, 6.5 yards of play, and the Colts turnovers were the big problem. Daniel Jones, interception on the fourth play. But the big turnover, of course, Adonai Mitchell goes full Jonathan Taylor, makes this great play, bust for the end zone, and then puts his hand. Come on, guys, stop celebrating at the goal line. Just get in the end zone and hand the ball to the ref or something. Fumbles, can't recover it, out of the end zone. Like, I don't know, your EPA has to just be like -7 on that play because you're literally walking into the end zone and instead you're giving the ball to the other team at that point. So obviously, you lose by 7. There's the 7 right there. And beyond that, the Rams tie it late, get a stop, and then it's like, okay, how's this going to work? Can they stop Stafford? Will this be like, will there be time for Indianapolis to try to score? We get to see Daniel Jones. Well, we did because it took one play, 88 yards to Tutu Atwell just streaking down the sideline, and the Rams go up, and then the Colts couldn't respond. Obviously, I was keyed in on Puka Nacua, 13 catches, career high, 170 yards. Took the escalator all the way up. He didn't quite get to 15.
So
I could have sworn we were going to get there until Tutu had to eat all the 88 yards at once. But we hit our 8 at plus money, or 9, 10, and 12. 42 receptions for him through 4 games is tied for the most by any player in NFL history. I think Colts, I don't know if you can say they failed their first test. I think you passed the test, but I think you passed it with like a B. And I think the Colts want to believe that they're better than that. They're now tied for the division because the Jaguars won today as well. So it's real great, Indianapolis, that you've been doing well so far, but you've got work to do still. Rams look really good, and they're usually not good early in the season either. Usually this is a team that rounds into form late under McVay. We will watch them Thursday night against the 49ers. It's a huge game in that division early on. We watched the other teams play last Thursday, Niners, Rams. McVay, Shanahan is always a great rivalry. One of those teams goes 4-1 and really gets kind of pole position on that division going forward. So good one Thursday night for once this week.
Yeah, I think the only other thing here is Puka, and you had mentioned the record in terms of receptions. I looked this up just because I was curious, and the numbers felt ridiculous. So 50 targets in 4 games, leads NFL. He also has 503 receiving yards. So his 52 targets and 501 receiving yards in 2023, he is the only wide receiver last 45 years with 2 seasons of that through 4 games. So 2023 and 2025, literal historic starts with Marvin Harrison, and that's Marvin Harrison Sr., not Jr. And tons and tons of ridiculous company for Puka Nacua to start the season. And I guess one other thing on this game for me, and I talked about the Daniel Jones thing off the top with this one. Yeah, the turnovers there, I think the 2 picks. But to be fair, the 2 interceptions were on 20-plus yards downfield. He was taking shots. I'd rather those picks than the other ones. And 10 of 11 passing, a touchdown and no interceptions under pressure, 6 of 8 for a touchdown getting blitz. That's the things I want to see out of Daniel Jones. I'm not asking. I don't want to use the word game manager because I feel like at this moment that's a bit disrespectful. But to me, it's kind of the path I want him to take if the Colts want to stay in games and let their other skill players do work. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think Daniel Jones has earned the respect of us having to have that conversation with him now and not treating him with training wheels. And I think that's a good thing for him and for the Colts going forward.
All right. Speaking of training wheels, Ravens, Chiefs. So Chiefs win this game 37-20, just an odd game, and we will go over it. But I think odd is the word I'll use. They cover as 2.5-point home underdogs. Total goes over 48.5. I mean, I don't know how you not start with Lamar. So everything was just so odd with everything that happened in this game at the point that he leaves. But it's worth noting that before he leaves, Kansas City's absolutely dominating this one. Like, this isn't Lamar leaves and then the game turns. I mean, Kansas City ends up 27-10, I think, at some point. I mean, they were literally dominating this game. Baltimore felt like they couldn't move the ball much, and especially from like a yards per carry. I mean, it's not going terribly. I believe I wrote down here 7.3 yards per carry midway through the third quarter, but they trailed by 17 points. To me, this was just a terrible Lamar Jackson game, which led to a hamstring injury that we thought was just a benching because out of nowhere, Cooper Rush comes running out on the field. And we're all kind of looking at each other being like, it's not really out of hand. Like, I think there was like 10 minutes left in the third quarter. So the way it was reported and everything that kind of surrounded it was just odd, especially the way Lamar reacted. So in terms of what I take going forward with this one, I think Kansas City's offense and the time to throw that Mahomes showed in this one and has kind of shown this season is what they're going to need to succeed based off of what they bring to the table offensively. But I have a few other numbers, but what do you think about Baltimore, KC?
Man, Baltimore, I don't know there are many people higher in Baltimore than me coming into the season. Like they were the team I talk about every ranking, everything we did, coaching, line, offense, defense, quarterback, weapons, everything. They were at the top, and they are 1-3 now and not at the top of really anything except points allowed. If you check that one, they're probably right at the top of that one pretty easily. Their offense didn't do anything in this game. They go 70 yards on the first drive and then pretty much nothing after that. Lamar, interception in the next drive, turnover and downs after that, strip sack all before halftime for him. I'm going to guess that we're going to get reports of like he was already playing with a hamstring injury or it happened early in the game. It felt very LeBron-esque. You're like, oh, yeah, you're behind by 1,000 and you're injured now and you're going to let Cooper play. Okay, cool, great. Like, I don't know. The vibes for this team right now just feel completely off. And Ravens fans, I think, are reflecting that online. Like, they want Zach Orr gone, the defensive coordinator. They want John Harbaugh gone. Like, it's ugly right now. It's Lamar, just like the look of him on the bench, especially as we're not really sure, is he getting benched? Is he hurt? As the reporting's coming out, just a weird look and a weird feel as that's happening. Harbaugh and the Ravens score late with Cooper Rush. And granted, you're down 24. You're probably not going to win with Cooper Rush out there. 24 is 3 scores. You got to go for 2 and at least pretend like you might win. And it just kicked the extra point. And I think even just kicked off after that. Like, we're done. We're out. Just get us out of here. Like that's a white flag that you just can't wave in a game like this. So I don't know. I don't know. Is it Harbaugh? Is it Lamar? Is it leadership? Is it just the defense? The defense is horrendous right now. Baltimore effectively didn't get a stop the entire game. Chiefs go field goal, touchdown, missed field goal. So I guess we can count that as a half stop. And then touchdown out of the half. That's where it's 27-10, as you mentioned. Field goal, touchdown. Most of these drives are like 9 plays, 14 plays, 5, 6, 7, 6, 10 plays. They can't get off the field. We've been complaining about the Chiefs' offense all month, how dreadful they are, and the Ravens can't stop them one time. The Chiefs get to the red zone 6 times. They go 4 for 4 on 4th down. That's just like disrespect of the Ravens defense that we're just going to use all 4 downs. You can't stop us anyways. The Chiefs score how many points here? What's the Chiefs' final score? 37.
Yeah.
You scored 37. It's their first time with at least 33 points since week 3, 2023 against the Bears. Here's for comparison's sake. That was the first game Taylor Swift went to for the Chiefs. That's how long it's been since the Chiefs scored this many points, and they did it against the Ravens. So Zach Orr, I don't know. Like, I feel like at 1-3 and this disastrous of a performance for the Ravens, I think something's got to happen. And John Harbaugh's not getting fired tomorrow because he's been too good for too long, and there are too many other things in the way. So I think maybe Zach Orr is going to have to go. We saw last year the Ravens defense, first half of the season, was not great. And then there was a lot of talk midseason of like, oh, yeah, they moved Kyle Hamilton and the defense is great now. And we got a lot of Zach Orr credit. But that was against a lot of pretty bad offenses late. And it looks like that might have been a false positive. And this is just not clicking right now. So I don't know. Everything is bad. Lamar, 3 sacks, interception, strip sack, negative EPA. There were 2 delay of games. That's on the quarterback. There was an intentional grounding, just some bad passes. I'm disgusted. I thought this Ravens team was about as good of a team as I'd seen all around in the NFL for a few years now, and they're on the brink of a lost season right now.
Yeah, I think the injuries are a big factor, but I think with injuries kind of comes some things from Harbaugh, some things from Lamar, and that's even pre-injury. But look at these names: Lamar, Stanley, Roquan, Marlon, Nate Wiggins, Matabuke, Washington, Ricard, Travis Jones, Van Noy. Like, it is literally endless right now for a team for a team who had unbelievable talent. I mean, there's only so much to overcome, especially with a difficult roster, a difficult schedule. I will say this, breaking news. After the game tonight, which saw 80 points on Sunday Night Football, Baltimore is still 1 point more allowed than Dallas this season. So Baltimore is still the worst defense in the NFL in terms of points allowed. I'll say this. If you want to know history with Baltimore, I believe their previous high in terms of points allowed through 4 games was 104 before this season. This season, we're at 133 for Baltimore. And listen to this, 7 rushing touchdowns allowed, tied with Tennessee. You don't want to be tied with Tennessee in any stinking category, offensive, defensive, or anything. So with that being said, I don't know what else to say for Baltimore other than the fact you look forward and all you see is Houston and the Rams. And that is not pretty. And even if you didn't watch the Texans play football today and you would have just seen everything they had done prior to that, it's still not a great matchup. Even though Baltimore's dominated them, it's not the team you want to see to try to get better or try to, kind of bounce back, you would say.
Well, one silver lining is they don't have another road game for a month, so at least there's that. That's maybe. Good. But I don't know. Right now, you might not want to be around Baltimore. Like, you might want to get out of town a little bit and maybe have to kind of reset. I was looking. I wanted hot read Texans Ravens under. Like, give me a number and give me the under. But it's telling that I haven't seen that line posted anywhere. Like, no lines at all, spread or total. That tells me that there's a real chance Lamar Jackson is hurt enough to be in doubt for next week because just for the numbers, if he's out, obviously we know Lamar Jackson and Cooper Rush is a downgrade. Here's what it is as far as a downgrade to me. I still had Ravens power rated number 1 just based on roster strength. They go from number 1 overall, number 1 offense to Cooper Rush, 5.8 points to the spread downgrade, drops them to the number 15 offense. So they go from the best offense, theoretically, to league average, and they drop from 1st to 12th overall. The defense obviously is not good. I think my roster matrix is overrating the defense, and I've got to factor in some of those other injuries. Nate Wiggins obviously got hurt today and a couple other guys. But yeah, you have to win that Ravens game the Texans game next week that they at least this morning were favored by over a touchdown. We'll see now because I don't know what you do if Cooper Rush is the quarterback. And the Rams maybe suddenly might be favored in Baltimore, which would have been crazy, 1 day ago thinking about that. So they got to save the season. They do get the bye week after that. That's good. Except hamstring injuries are usually 2 or 3 weeks, and that makes that a really tempting time to hold out Lamar Jackson for those 2 games against tough defenses, Texans, and then all those Rams pass rushers. That's not a team you want to have like a gimpy hamstring out there. So I don't know. If you can get to 2-4, beat the Texans, I assume, beat one of those games, get to the bye week, get some bodies back out there. Like, the Lamar MVP ticket, I think, is dead because it's losses already for the team, and he's probably missing time now. But the Ravens are like, are we going to make the playoffs at this point? And does this team even want to? I'll say this. We said a lot about the Ravens. Great game for the Chiefs. Mahomes 4 touchdowns. The Chiefs go to 2-2 now. I don't think they're necessarily out of the woods just yet. Monday night at Jacksonville next week. Sunday night against the Lions the week after that. Those are tough games, and I'm not ready to just say that the Chiefs are whole and ready to go now. I think they still have work to do. They might be looking also at like 3-3. I think they probably feel pretty good about 3-3 after that stretch. So there's the AFC. We thought Bills, Chiefs, Ravens. Well, the Bills are doing fine, but Chiefs, Ravens are just like clawing to try to get to 500 ball right now, and that's what we watched in this game.
Well, the Chiefs are going to have a tough time beating Jacksonville if Jacksonville continues to force 3 turnovers a game.
That's
so
true.
we will see if that continues next week. I'll give you a few stats before we move on here. You mentioned the under for Baltimore-Houston next week. I'll just say this, and it's definitely a Lamar stat more than it is a Ravens stat, but they're 18-5 to the over since the beginning of last year, going over by 6 points per game. But to me, that's a Baltimore defense stat plus a Lamar stat, and those two things together have probably sailed those totals, but interesting nonetheless. And then I'll give you this. So Baltimore had a double-digit win total entering the year, now 1-3. We've seen 16 total teams, double-digit win total, 1-3 start. 2 of 14 made the playoffs. So 2 of the 16 went 2-14. So it is a difficult ride. Baltimore is going to need to figure out some stuff. The last team was at 2007 Chargers. So it has been a while. But to me, this game was more about Baltimore's defense, and I figured KC's offense would come around at some point.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's keep rolling here. Before we move on, do not forget to sign up for Action Pro for real-time pick alerts from experts like Brandon Anderson, myself, our entire Action Network team. Me and Brandon both on Omari and Hampton today. Make sure you get those alerts. Plus, you can access our pro projections powered by Sean Kerner and our predictive analytics team. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro. Get $20 off the annual price with the promo code POD20, POD20. Do not miss out on the best bets at the best prices. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro. Use the promo code POD20 to get $20 off a year of Action Pro. All right. So we are going to go to London. We're going to go not London. London's next week. We're going to Dublin. So Vikings and the Steelers. So Pittsburgh wins the game 24-21. Closes as about a 2.5-point underdog. Total goes over 41. And over 41 right at the end. That under looks real good for a long time. I feel like this is a little bit similar to the Colts. And I think this happened a few times today, just in terms of the box score. But Minnesota had 8 penalties. They had 2 turnovers. They scored 6 points in their first 7 drives and still, in the end, had the ball with a chance to win or go to overtime at the end of the game. And I feel like that happened a few times today where really solid teams had really bad days and still somehow found themselves in the game at the end. But as usual, Tomlin's shenanigans just gets on planes, it gets on trains, it's on boats. Everywhere you go, Tomlin figures out how to find the voodoo with the turnovers, and things tend to go their way. I'll say this, they were +2 in turnover today, Pittsburgh. They are 68-5 straight up, 60-12-1 against the spread when their margin is +2 or better in turnovers. It's just kind of what they do. What do you take away? I mean, you're Mr. Carson Wentz. So what do you take away from Vikings Steelers?
Yeah, I think the Carson Wentz experience might already be over in Minnesota. We saw what Carson Wentz does, which unfortunately is hold the ball a little bit too long, trying to be the hero. And in this game, we saw right tackle Brian O'Neill go out for the Vikings right in the first drive on a field goal at the end. Ryan Kelly, the center, came out of concussion protocol this week, went back into it mid-game. That's not great. Like, I think that's maybe his 5th time he's gotten a concussion protocol in his career. There's almost no chance, I would think, that he can play next week with the flight. Obviously, is still, is it a flight? I don't know my geography over there. But either way, I don't see Kelly out there. I'm not sure O'Neill will be out there. They're already missing Donovan Jackson at left guard. And as Vikings fans got excited for, okay, we're finally getting healthy. Darisaw is back. Our line's coming together. And it just can't get healthy. I don't know if we're going to see when we'll see the 5 guys that are supposed to be starting all healthy out there together. That's a problem because next week in London, it's the Browns. And as good as they've been defensively, that's what this Vikings O-line is facing. So Carson Wentz behind an O-line that can't block. And frankly, I think Kevin O'Connell got outcoached in this game. I don't think that he has made the right adjustments to set the team up when these offensive line injuries are happening. I think you just have to do something a little different. And the Vikings have now allowed 27 sacks in their last 5 games, counting the playoff game. So just continued problem. All of that, you can't do much about the injuries. You got injured quarterback, injured offensive line. The real disappointing thing is the Vikings defense. The Steelers had a 59% success rate for the entire game, including 65% on early downs. That's the 100th percentile. You cannot be more successful than that. So really, this game isn't as close as it looks. The Steelers should have been ahead by a lot more all game and dominated really quite a bit. So I think Pittsburgh, this is not a team that should be dominating you, especially as talented as the Vikings are. The run defense right now just cannot make a play. Jaylen Warren is like the overnight scratch, screws all the fantasy football lineups that he's just already sitting in the morning. So Kenneth Gainwell comes in just like running all over the place on the Vikings. So it's not great. The Vikings now, if you think about it, obviously the huge win against the Bengals last week, but an ugly kind of loss here. Pretty ugly loss Sunday night against the Falcons that everybody watched. And an ugly should have been a loss the Monday night Bears game until the fourth quarter. So that's now 3 games out of 4 that the Vikings have been pretty terrible until they kind of woke up in the fourth quarter. It's not good enough.
Yeah, the quarterback play from Minnesota, from McCarthy to Wentz, has been kind of their downfall. I compare it to what the Colts have gone through. Like, I think all these solid teams with other great players around them now, I think you're right about the offensive line, and I think it's shown up in many ways that's made it more difficult than probably it should have been for Wentz. But without a doubt, it is what is keeping them back. Last year, they got lucky. Sam Darnold looked fantastic. He looks good in Seattle, and they decided to move on, and now they're trying to piece it together. So good team, difficult line, but overall, you feel good about the pieces, which makes it difficult to bet on or off week to week. Next week with Cleveland is just an anomaly. It's just very difficult to deal with because Cleveland can't figure out how to score points in most situations. Flacco's turning it over everywhere you go, and the line's only 3.5 because you have to lay it with Carson Wentz. So not sure what to do there. I'll give you the one stat in this game that kind of stood out to me from Aaron Rodgers' point of view, and this is just laughable at this point. This is crazy. So he has 2.52 time to throw, shortest in the NFL. We spoke about Mahomes and how well he's been playing when he throws it very quickly in terms of downs. Aaron doing the same here. And the funniest thing is Aaron's average depth of target today, his ADOT, 3.3. And it was 5.6 entering today. Only Tyrod Taylor's was lower. So Aaron Rodgers, really quick, really short, and then hoping everyone else does the job, or they matriculate it down the field, because entering today, they couldn't run the ball one iota, and then Gainwell goes for 99, so at least they found a little bit there, but their offense is incredibly dink and dunk at this point.
It is, but it worked this day because DK Metcalf just can take the slant and take it to the house like you did and just bust the game open. So as long as you find a couple of those plays a game and then do the Steelers voodoo for the rest, they can kind of hang around. And here they are, like always, 3-1. Though remember, Steelers' early season schedule is the soft spot, and it gets a lot harder later. So I think this is kind of what we expected as the setup for this team going in.
Yeah, they have a bye, and then they've got Cleveland, Cincinnati, Green Bay. So a little bit of a mix there. Would have been a lot more difficult with Burrow in that middle game. All right, let's keep rolling here. Philly, Tampa Bay. So Philly wins this game 31-25. Wasn't that close for a long time, but ends up covering as 3.5-point favorites. Total goes over 44.5. I think the thing that I thought was the best out of watching this game all day is the amount of fake tush pushes that Philly kind of set up in their offense, and the way that they really looked like all week. They were like, everyone assumes we're going to do this, but this week we're going to come up with 4 to 5 formations out of the tush push, whether it's a flip to Goddard or a roll around with Barkley. There was something in their hat trick that they came out of this with Sirianni that really, it made me feel like there was preparation for this one. And you could see even Vita Vea looked so frustrated and confused, I believe, when it was when the game was out of hand early because of all these different formations. So I usually have nothing nice to say about Philadelphia because the offense is just so ridiculous. And again, you'll talk about the fact that they didn't complete a pass in the second half. So it wasn't all pretty, but I feel like some of those formations, a little bit of that trickery created some easy opportunities to get touchdowns in this one. But yeah, go.
It did, and we saw this week Tampa Bay, I forget the guy's name, but they signed the 400 whatever pound dude off the practice squad. So you knew you're going to put that guy next to Vita Vea. And so the Eagles are just like screwing around, coming up with other tush-push ideas that, credit where it's due, like you said. Like, they got the play that's unstoppable. The entire league wants it to be banned. Now they're finding other variations to make it work too. So they do one thing really, but they just do it really darn well. But beyond that, they had 200 yards of offense today. 200 yards, 3.4 yards per play. Turns out
Crazy.
3.4, 3 plays in a row still gets you a first down, or at least gets you within a foot of it, and then just do the tush push and get another set of downs and keep going. Like you said, not one pass completion in the second half. We got Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on a team. They each get 2 catches. Jalen Hurts, 130 yards. Like, what are we doing? Can we please play football, Philadelphia Eagles? Obviously, you get to do what you want when you're ahead on the game script, and the game script immediately tilted their way. They block a punt for a touchdown. You get on the front foot, and you just kind of get to play Eagles football after that. We saw last week they finally had to play not Eagles football, and they actually did the thing, and they came back, and they got Hurts passing, and they won the game. This is not a close game. The Bucs, I know, a couple times I think had the ball down 8, and we're driving, and Baker had an interception in the end zone. Down 8, you're still like, you're 2 scores down. Like, you need a touchdown and a 2 just to tie. And so, we get the punter walk-off safety at the end of the game, just running the clock out. That's why we're at 6 points. But the Bucs are the better team by yardage, almost double them. But 0-2 in the red zone, the only 2 turnovers of the game. To me, that's it right there. The Eagles, I don't even think are playing that well. They're just letting other teams play worse. And that's a skill, and that's a thing that you can do in the regular season at least. But I thought this game was a fraud off coming in, and it kind of is what it played out as. Other than Chase McLaughlin, 65-yard field goal outdoors, the greatest kick in NFL history. That's my takeaway. Everything else about this game kind of sucked.
I mean, I'll take McLaughlin. I had over 1.5 field goals, so that was nice to cash on that one. I will say this: 24-6 start off this game. Basically 3 drives into the third quarter. Everyone thought this one was completely over, but Tampa Bay 27-14 second half ATS over the last 3 seasons, best in the NFL. Baker's done it like 3 of the last 4 weeks in terms of this season. They always just figure out a way to get back in the game, whether it's Mike Evans out there or not. They have a ton of targets now, and Baker just has, I used this word earlier and I'll use it like every time I talk about Baker. It just feels like there's moxie, and that's what kind of keeps them in the games. And I kind of love it. The one issue I want to talk about on the Phillies side, and I just feel like this is something that's coming around each week. So Saquon Barkley goes from 88 to 60 to 46 to 43 in rushing yards week 1 to week 4. So basically decreased each week. I don't really care about that. I think the opponents go here to here. This is the thing I care about most. So averaging 2.7 yards per carry in the second half this year. He has the most second half carries in the NFL. In the second half last year, averaging 6.7 yards per carry. So just your casual 4-yard difference year to year in the second half. But that was part of what made him Superman last year. Like that was why he was special, is he was running out the opponent, and people were getting exhausted having to sub in the second half, and he was breaking 70-yard runs. So I think that is part of the issue this year. There's something that just feels off there. But Philly leads the league in terms of run play percentage, 54%. It's just what they do. They don't throw the ball. They run the ball, whether they're winning or they're losing. And one thing, I didn't see the status on this, but Lane Johnson, I believe, leaves this game with a shoulder injury. So there's just lots to monitor on the Phillies side, but none of it is good. But listen, they've won, I think, 18 in a row with Hurts when he finishes, and they're like 20-1 in their last 21.
Yep.
It just doesn't matter. They figure out how to win. And when they play the Rams, they know how to cover.
Yeah, I don't know more to add. I think that's a...
All right, let's keep rolling here. Chargers, Giants. So the Giants, the Giants, win the game 21-18, cover is 6-point home dogs. Total goes under 42.5. This was the greatest quarter of Giants football in years. And then, like being a Giants fan is, you got the devastating news with Neighbors that pretty much just, at that point, And I will say, put all the gambling aside, for me, it's like 20 plus years. If I had to pick a team, it is the Giants. So I see, it's an amazing quarter. You've got Dart going, you've got Scatterbo going, you've got Neighbors catching balls. Like you see, and the defense, and you see everything kind of putting together. But when Neighbors gets hurt, you say to yourself, you might as well just lose this game. I was rooting for Herbert in the final possessions because I'm like, let's just toss this season out the window, because at this point you're not doing anything without Neighbors, and it just becomes kind of sad. So I think there's a lot to take away from this game, like opposing running backs against the Giants, and Hampton went crazy, things of that nature, and Quentin Johnston's season, but just kind of sad from a Giant standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. You and I both were on Hampton. He had the breakout game, 128 yards, plays 3/4 the snaps. We hit the escalator all the way up to 120 on that one. Chargers, 53% success rate on rushes. Why are you running so little? They had 15 rushes to 48 passes. We'll talk about Neighbors in a second, but Joe Alt goes out in this game. Yeah. Not as devastating as far as season ending, hopefully. It looks like an ankle sprain, high ankle sprain, so he'll probably miss some time. But we already lost Rashawn Slater, so that's your two stud tackles, probably the best tackle combo in the league. Becton is already hurt, so that's really their only three good linemen. So now they have none of them. They might be one of the worst offensive lines right now. They are one of the worst. They might be the worst, and that's saying something. We're in the game with the Giants right now. Like, that's how bad this is. So if you're running the ball that well, and running is helpful for your offensive line, it's much easier to run block than pass block. I don't understand why you go so pass heavy in this game when you're running that well. Hampton had a couple long ones. Giants are the worst run defense in the league and looked the part here. They just didn't get threatened that much. So I don't really understand that. Chargers up next, Washington and Miami. Should be softer, maybe. We don't really know who's ever healthy for Washington, but I got to think Joe Alt maybe misses at least a game or two, and that line is really in trouble without him. So from 3-0 to 3-1, and we'll see how things go from here. Injuries can pile up in a hurry, and offensive line and secondary are the two places where cluster injuries can really, really derail your season. So I do have to take that away for the Chargers. Neighbors, what are we doing with the Meadowlands turf monster? Like, how many guys have to have careers derailed by the stupid injuries at the turf there? Torn ACL in all likelihood. That's already the reporting. I said before this season, Andrew Thomas and Malik Neighbors are the two most important guys by far on this offense. They're going to get hurt, one or both eventually. And when either one goes out, it's probably the worst offense in the league. So I updated my rankings with Neighbors out. And look, Wandale's had a nice year. Slayton is fine. That's not a real receiving core with not Neighbors leading the way.
Not even close.
It is the worst receiving core in the league. It's the worst skill position grouping in the league now. Cam Scatterbo played like 90% of the snaps. This dude was barely even known a couple weeks ago other than just like college circles, and now he's the entire offense. This is, with a bullet, the worst offense in the league by a wide margin for me. I think you're right. I think, unfortunately, this is probably the highlight of the season, even with the Neighbors injury. Getting this win, getting Jackson Dart the first win, his first touchdown, the 1-0 stat to his name. I think it's going to be pretty ugly because there's just nothing there to help him. No blocking, no weapons, no receivers. It's going to be a long year for the Giants the rest of the way.
Yeah, I agree. Scatterbo, 25 carries today for 79 yards, 3.2, but 65 of 79 after contact, which is exactly what he does. I think we need to spend at least 10 seconds right now. Quentin Johnston, third in the NFL last time I looked in receiving yards, which is just laugh out loud funny. 337 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. Since 2000, only other Charger to do that through 4 games, Antonio Gates in 2010. So that is the company of Quentin Johnston right now, who is also 5th in targets, and Keenan Allen 7th in targets. So interesting from a Chargers point of view. But I don't think you can take much away from this game except for the Chargers offensive line. When Alt comes out and Austin Deculus, I believe, comes onto the offensive line, allows 6 pressures in this game. Alt's allowed 3 pressures in 4 games. That is a very easy math equation on what the offensive line might look forward for the Chargers. All right, you ready to keep rolling?
Let's roll.
All right. Jaguars and 49ers. Jacksonville wins this game 26-21 as 3.5-point dogs. Total goes over 45.5. I mean, I feel like I could have talked about a bunch of different things, but then Liam Cohen met Rob Saleh at midfield, and I said to myself, that's probably the only thing I want to talk about. It's a joke. There's a few other things, but it was the viral moment at the end of the game. Obviously, Saleh had been talking about some of like the signal stuff with Cohen, and then I just felt like there was a little bit of pent up bad blood. But do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I honestly I missed the moment. I was reading. I was going to have to catch up on it afterward, but it definitely looked fun.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on there. I think a little bit of bad blood. But to me, the on-the-field aspect of this game that gets the most attention is Devin Lloyd. Just ridiculous. And this was tweeted out by NFL Next Gen Stats, but Devin Lloyd added 56.3% in net win probability across 5 plays against the 49ers. Intercepted 2 passes, earned a pressure on a fourth quarter sack fumble, and had stuffed 2 runs at the line of scrimmage. So between that and what Jacksonville has done in the turnover game on defense, feels like the story of this one altogether. I mean, they had 9 turnovers last year. I think they end this game with 13 already through 4 games. They are a +9 in turnover differential on the season. They've turned the opposing team over 3 times in all 3+ times in all 4 games. They are just the 3rd team to do that in the last, 20 years. So to go from 10 games last season where they didn't commit a turnover or didn't force a turnover to this year already having 13 through 4 games, feel like it's close to the story of the NFL at the moment with the Jaguars tied atop the division.
Yeah, I agree. The turnovers for Jacksonville, and it seems like a thing that shouldn't be sustainable, but we
Correct.
also have learned the hard way that you can't just regression doesn't mean that Jacksonville just gets to have no turnovers the next 3 games. That's not how it works either. Regression to the mean, not just, the average is out. We got to wait till the average comes back down to earth now. So it's tricky because it doesn't seem like this can keep happening. They can't keep getting away with this meme, but they can. And against the Niners, they did. And that's kind of what Kyle Shanahan continues to do, unfortunately. I've given credit on 2 of these night recaps about, okay, the Niners look like they're going to do the Shanahan thing, but they didn't. They got the win. Well, this game, they have more yards, more first downs, an extra yard per play. All the Shanahan stats, they always win all those stats. Unfortunately, you got to win the game. They go 1 of 3 in the red zone. Shanahan staple, never quite able to finish the drives. And then obviously the turnovers. 4 turnovers for them, none forced. I was very worried about this team coming out of last week with Nick Bosa's injury. And I don't think the defense was necessarily terrible in this game, but I think this team maybe it's just not going to happen for them this year because all the injuries are there. And the other thing I'm worried about too, Christian McCaffrey continues to be awesome as a receiver. 17 carries for 49 yards today. It's not a great average. It's under 3 yards a carry. San Fran, 26% success rate running the football. They had no first downs on 20 early runs this game, and that's not a new stat for them. McCaffrey has had a high volume all season. Fantasy players all think McCaffrey is still awesome because he gets like 30 touches every game, and PPR is going great, but he is not running the ball well. And the Niners and Shanahan are not the same when they can't run the ball. So is that McCaffrey? Is the burst not there as a runner? Pass catching, great, but running not. Is it Trent Williams? I don't think he's been that great this year either. I don't know if either one of them is fully healthy. I don't know at this stage of their careers with all their injury history if they're going to get any healthier and, just magically get healthier in the season. Pearsall and Juwan Jennings both leave hurt again at receiver. The hits don't, they keep coming. And again, we said earlier, the Niners play Thursday against the Rams. There's no time to recover here. And I just feel like I could see a world where if the Rams play well that night, and Shanahan has often got the best of McVay, but if the Rams play well, the Niners feel like they're like at any moment a 20-point loss away from happening. And maybe that's Thursday if all the injuries finally catch up to them.
Yeah, You're preaching to the choir here. I mean, I couldn't be more anti-San Francisco than I have been all season, and I feel the same right now. I mean, I bet Jacksonville today. I feel like I was taking crazy pills that they were sitting there at 3-0, and I guess 4 turnovers today. And Jacksonville wins by 5. A few of those don't happen, and San Francisco might even win this game by 7-8 points depending on the situation. So I think the injury to Pearsall and things of that nature make it more difficult for Purdy. But again, maybe the quietest 300-yard passing game I've ever seen in my life, because I looked at the box score and said, wait, he threw for 300 yards in this game. But CMC has 11 targets in the air. So, I mean, that's the type of offense that they were running. I'll say this. This is just insane. No sacks, no turnovers. I mean, and San Francisco in this game at the end basically doing nothing on that side of the ball, plus turning it over 4 times. So, again, I feel like a lot of these box scores today, just teams being kept in games despite the box score saying that, should be 14 to 20 points the other way. How about this one? So, San Francisco, I believe they're 11th straight game without an interception. That is just unreal on the defensive side of a ball for a team that used to put pressure on quarterbacks and force those on the regular. So this is just a different San Francisco team, I fear. And going forward, I have to see what's their schedule look like. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So at the Rams Thursday Night Football, but then you're at Tampa versus Atlanta. I mean, it doesn't – I mean, an easy schedule, as we know, for the entire season, but not a great stretch with the short week and some decent offenses. So we will see how it goes. Anything else here before we go forward?
Yeah, it's a shame for them that the Rams game is such a key game, because otherwise this might almost be a spot where you kind of punt Thursday night. You're like, you know what, Mac, why don't you play again? Who's our backup running back? Who can play receiver? You almost kind of punt and say, okay, can our backups hang in there, and can we try to steal one? But then let's get the extra rest. Then we got the 10 days. Can we get a hold for a week here? But they don't have that opportunity against the Rams. You got to go try to win that one. And I just fear we're going to keep getting in that direction in a division that's tough. Seattle's 3-1 also. So as good as San Fran starts 3-0, now they're tied with 2 other teams at the top of the division.
Yeah, we said it again. We said it before, and I feel like it's worth reiterating. No one as consistent, I feel like, week to week than the Rams. So getting them on the short week after all these injuries, after all these issues, just feels like the wrong time. So a difficult spot for San Francisco. All right, let's go through all the rest of the games a little bit quickly here. I actually forgot to write this one down, so we're going to have to wait. So the Raiders beat the Bears. Oh, the Bears beat the Raiders 25-24. The line was flipping all week. So the Bears were actually -1.5 at one point, but the Raiders closed -1.5. So Chicago ends up getting the cover. The total goes over 47.5. Honestly, I don't have much to say here other than Rome Odunze has been absolutely fantastic in this offense. I took this from Twitter, but only NFL player with a receiving touchdown in each of their first 4 games, and the first Bear to do it in the first 4 games since Walter Payton in '86. So amazing job there. And I feel like this game was a mess. Ashton Genty, his coming out show, 3 touchdowns. All right, let's keep rolling here. Washington and Atlanta. So Atlanta wins this game 34-27. Covers as a 2.5-point fave on close. Open +3 because we had no idea about Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin also not playing here. Total goes over 43.5. I mean, good bounce back by Atlanta after getting absolutely creamed by Carolina. They score 34 points after being shut out. Teams after scoring 3 points or less, 59% ATS since 2014. It was just a good spot. And it got tighter than I thought it would, which I think has a worry for me in Atlanta going forward. But let's keep rolling. Cleveland and Detroit. Detroit wins 34-10. Covers -10 on the close. Total officially under 44.5. Detroit is now 21-1 against the spread in the regular season since 2021, getting close to 5 full seasons at about a 34% return on investment, betting Detroit to cover during the regular season. Just absolutely ridiculous. Goff has 48 of those 50 covers for Detroit, most in the NFL. The next closest is Herbert with 39, 9 less covers. in that span. So Detroit absolutely rolling. All right, Carolina, New England. New England wins the game 42-13. Cover -5.5 with ease. Total goes over 42.5. Carolina has 2 sacks in 4 games on defense. I honestly don't know what else to say, as they pretty much aren't putting pressure on the other side and making Bryce and Ted McMillan do everything on the other side. And that's just not the way that Bryce is set up in his, let's see what it is, 16 total road games. Bryce is now 1-15 straight up and 5-11 against the spread on the road. So not great on that front. All right. Speaking of not great, Titans, Texans. Texans win this game 26-0. They cover as a 7-point favorite at 0-3 straight up. 7-point favorite at 0-3. Crazy times. Total goes under 39.5. The Titans are now 3-18 against the spread in their last 21 games. That is 6-24-1 in their last 31. I'll just quote Cam Ward here, who said in postgame, "If we keeping a buck right now, we're ass." That is a quote from Cam Ward, and you can put that on the internet because that is ridiculous. Tennessee has scored 51 points through 4 games. They have 3 touchdowns. They've missed 4 field goals. It just feels ridiculous at this point. So hopefully some of that changes for Tennessee going forward. They also have, I believe they have a 10-game ATS home losing streak, which they will bring to the front soon. And then finally, Saints, Bills. Let me tell you this. Buffalo barely wins this game 31-19, and I don't say that over a 12-point margin very often, but Saints-Bills could have very well been the game we talked about right after Sunday Night Football if a few things go some other directions. Buffalo does not close at 14.5-point close, so it goes over 48.5. Josh Allen has closed above a 10-point favorite 19 times in his career. 6, 11, and 2 ATS in those games. But the thing you're seeing everywhere now, he's now failed to cover in 9 straight in this spot. His last cover coming back in 2022. This is a great one, and I'll just say this. Here's the list of quarterbacks Josh has covered against in this spot. Kenny Pickett, Zach Wilson, Cam Newton, Mike White, Davis Mills, Dwayne Haskins. So those are the types of quarterbacks that he's covering with these big spreads. All right. Let's keep rolling here. We've got 2 Monday Night Football games. We're going to start with the Jets and the Dolphins. I will shut up for a second and let Brandon talk to give some bets, and then I will give you some thoughts myself. Brandon, Jets, Dolphins. Can't believe we're watching this one in primetime.
This game stinks. Like this game is not. This is not fun. These are my 27th and 28th power rated teams. They're almost dead even on my chart. So I think this line is basically about right. Somehow we're in a world that the Dolphins, who cannot get off the field or fire the coach fast enough, are favored, and then still favored next week against the Panthers also. Correctly so, I think. It's crazy that the Dolphins keep being favorites. So couple stats if you want to trend to bet on. If you want to bet on Miami, here's one. 8 of 10 games against the Jets, the Dolphins have won, including they've won 9 in a row against the Jets in Miami. So there's your Miami trend. If you want to bet against Miami, here's your trend. Week 4 over the last decade, the Dolphins are 0-10 ATS, 0-10 straight up. Does that mean anything? Absolutely not. But there's your trend if you want to bet them. Here's my bet. I'm going to take the under. Under 45.5 at DraftKings. Primetime unders, not counting Thursday games. Since 2019, 61%, 17% ROI. We know about the primetime unders. Monday night unders in division games, 57% ATS, not ATS obviously, but 57% of the under over the last couple of decades. And then Nick Giffen in the luck rankings has this as a strong luck under also. These defenses have allowed 190 points. So it doesn't seem like you want an under. That should be more like an expected 166 points. So I think that's kind of baked in here. We're getting some variance on the number as well at books. I see 45, 44, 44.5. Those numbers are kind of right in the range where they matter too. So that's it for me on this one. Just give me an under, and hopefully I can ignore it as much as possible.
Yeah, I'll do the Brandon, and I'll give you one good stat and one bad stat. So the good Tua is he's 5-0 straight up against the Jets in his career as a starter, winning by 14.2 points per game. Ridiculous. He's beaten 4 different Jets quarterbacks, which is actually pretty funny. Flacco, Zach Wilson, Rodgers, and Tim Boyle. An amazing trio there. Or I'm sorry, 4 quarterbacks. But the other stat that's ridiculous. So dating back to 2019, we talked about this last week. Jets and Giants 1-16 straight up on the road in prime time. So that now travels down to Miami. 1-16 feels fake. And the other angle, which I'm actually going to take an actionable angle on. So Miami is 0-3 second half ATS this year. I feel like a Miami first half Jets full game is an interesting angle to take in a lower scoring game. Maybe you get like 13-10 going to the half or something like that, and then you can have it flipped. So I think that's one interesting angle. I had a difficult time trying to come up with too much like official play actionable here. The 2 rushing plays I thought were intriguing. Malik Washington over 6.5 rushing yards. I wanted it a little shorter because I feel like that could come down to 1 rush, but I think he gets there. And Ollie Gordon, I saw the low line at 20.5. Other books getting to 23 and 24. So thought that was an interesting snipe. This was a special. I was curious about your thought on this. Special on DraftKings, which is I think this is a decent matchup for Garrett Wilson, and I think this is a time where Tyreek could get some work. So they have these specials of 5 yards and 10 yards in each quarter for both guys, 14-1 at 5 and 50-1 at 10. I feel like this is a game where like some of those guys might get some work. I got one more bet, but what's your thought there?
Yeah, I get suckered into those like every game or every quarter type bets, and the problem is just it's you're parlaying you're parlaying 8 outcomes. You're parlaying
Correct.
4 quarters for each guys, and it just seems like, oh, it's only 5 yards. How hard can it be? But for starters, it's at least 4 catches, 1 in each quarter. So just that alone, like it's a fun bet. It's a fun bet that you can bet a couple bucks on. It's not a bet that you should expect to cash for you. There's a reason those are available at every book every time, but they're fun. They're fun to root for, and you're probably just going to get 1 quarter that screws you, but you know, it's a fun one to have on a game that's not fun in any other way. So
I'll say this, the reason I like it, and this is the bet I think that's more actionable and better, is I like Garrett Wilson. He's -110, and I like Breece Hall plus 225 to get a catch on the first Jets drive. Garrett Wilson this year, 10 targets in the first quarter, which is, top 8 or so in the NFL. And Breece went 2 for 2 on target receptions versus Tampa Bay last week. So I feel like the Jets might come out a little aggressive, a little different, especially with Field starting. I think those guys getting reset. I think the way I would do it is like half unit on Garrett, quarter unit on Breece, and you end up cashing with either. Something of that nature would be the way I would play it.
Yeah, I mean, you did better than I did. I came up with an under, so I tried. I wore my Dolphins shirt. It's the best I can do for this game.
Don't worry, I have a little bit less on the next one. All right, so Cincinnati and Denver is the second Monday Night Football game. Right now, that line is 7.5 for Denver, 44.5. I said it earlier, but Denver is 0-3 against the spread, the last undefeated or winless ATS team so far this season. I feel like the stat you almost have to continue to say when it comes to Zach Taylor, 45, 32, and 1 straight up with Burrow, 8 and 23 when he doesn't have Burrow under center. Obviously 7.5 points, a lot different than the straight up line here. But what are your thoughts on this matchup? Because I only have like 1 or 2 bets.
Yeah, I just think 7.5 is too much respect for Denver. That's going off of last year's Denver respect, and I don't know that they have earned that this year. So I'm going to take the Bengals just in a buy low spot. You can't get much uglier than what the Bengals did last week. They are bottom 3 in offensive DVOA coming this weekend. Offense, passing and rushing, bottom 3. The line is terrible. Chase Brown for the season, 47 rushes for 93 yards. What in the world? Like, that has been a disaster. But Denver, not really that overwhelming. Like, outside top 10 passing and running on defense. This was supposed to be everyone's number 1 defense. I was skeptical, and I don't think that they've been anything close to that this year. Bo Nix was last among all qualified quarterbacks in the PFF grade coming this weekend as well. So I don't really know what Denver has done to earn the respect of being over a touchdown favorite. And historically, when the Bengals or any team play as bad as they did last week, that's usually a good time to buy low on them. So just a couple trends here. Week 3 or later, underdogs that are coming off a loss of 35 or more points, which the Bengals sure as heck are, 69% cover rate in that following game. You're inflating the line, and that's what's happening here past the key number. Road teams off a 24-point loss against the spread, 62% ATS the following week. Teams that have won 60% or more of their games, which the Bengals have right now, coming off a 20-point loss or worse, 64% ATS. And that one, just road teams, 40, 13, and 1 ATS, 76% hit rate. I don't think those trends are totally fair because they're assuming the Bengals are actually good in that last one, which we know they're not really a 2-1 team without Joe Burrow. But it's just a lot of trends that tell me the same thing. Buy low on a team that really can't be as bad as it looked last week. So I'm not super excited about either one of these games in the doubleheader. These are probably like half unit plays for me. I'm not like jumping all in on these, but I do think buy a little spot on the Bengals just coming off an awful game where it's got to get better.
Yeah, this one's tough. I have Bengals tracked in the app actually at 7.5. I like that number. You said every reason why I feel like that number is a little inflated, even with Jake Browning back there. And it's going to be tough to watch, but it is what it is. So that's one of my bets. I think the other bet, and I feel like we're all on this from Kerner, but he likes Tanner Hudson score a touchdown as a long shot in this one. No Noah Fant on Cincinnati's side. Gesicki, obviously the man, but Hudson kind of moves into that role, and we love ourselves a backup tight end almost in any scenario. So that feels like the right move to me. I'll probably sprinkle on first team touchdown, which is going to be shorter than first touchdown because I just want that sucker to kind of live for a quarter or so. So we will see how that goes. If you want to tail some of the bets that we gave out today for Monday night's game, make sure to look for the quick slip link in the podcast video description or go to actionhour.com/bet now. You can also find those quick slips in the live YouTube chat if you're still hanging out with us. All right, Brandon, I think we've teased the audience long enough. What are your hot reads for week 5? What are you looking at?
We're getting ugly. We're going with 2 unders, and they're pretty ugly unders. So let's start with my Vikings and the Browns. Just a heads up, you can probably sleep in next Sunday. Under 37.5 at DraftKings. Back to London, where we're not going to see a lot of points in this one, I don't think. Both teams entered the weekend top 3 DVOA defense, bottom quarter of the league on offense. The only real positive for either team right now offensively is rushing the ball. Vikings particularly, but the Browns are number 1 run defense. And just look at the matchup in the trenches. Browns are missing both their tackles, so you get that against Brian Flores and the pass rush. Probably Van Ginkel is back. Joe Flacco is a statue. So you either get that, or maybe soon enough, you might get Gabriel or Shadir out there. So either way, the Browns have, again, not scored more than 18 points in an entire season of non-Jameis games at this point. And that's the Vikings, who are missing Brian O'Neill at right tackle and center Ryan Kelly in all likelihood. Already left guard Donovan Jackson. Darrisaw is playing, but limited. Just the offensive line is in miserable health shape right now. So that's why I expect this line to go down. Vikings have allowed at least 3 sacks, 5 straight games, 27 over that stretch. And as much as I love Carson Wentz personally, that's not going to be a good pairing for him. He holds the ball too long, and he's going to get to know Myles Garrett all too well, I think, in this game. I don't know which one of these teams gets to count this as a, quote, home game, but either way, Wentz home unders are 67% for his career, and Flacco home unders are 57%. So either one of them can be the home team. I still like the under. 37 is kind of the last key number going down the mine shaft on total. So 37.5 at DraftKings. We're already at 36.5 at some books. Injury news as it comes out, especially overseas, that total could keep on dropping. And once it drops that low, usually history says you just cannot make the total low enough. If we get there, totals below 36 since 2012, 16-5 to the under, 76% to the under by 4 points a game. So we're on the under here. Keep an eye out. We might be back for the mine shaft also. Vikings, Browns, English under 37.5. What do you think about that one?
Oh, brutal. I will give you this one. We've had 51 international games in the NFL. Under 38, this would be the lowest over-under in an international game we have ever seen. So we are truly giving the worst offensive projections potentially to London for this beautiful matchup between Joe Flacco and Carson Wentz. We cannot wait. All right, you've got one more pick for us. Another beautiful, sexy, terrible under.
Another terrible, terrible under. Giants Saints. You thought we were going to skip that game? Not a chance. Giants Saints under 42.5. We talked about the Giants. Evan, cover your ears. Everyone's excited about Jackson Dart. 1-0, but 250 yards on the day. 89 was the opening drive. And then after that, pretty much nothing the rest of the game. Dart has 111 yards. He did run pretty well, but the Giants scored only 14 points after the opening drive. 11 of those were right after 2 turnovers when they gained a total of 2 yards on those drives. One of them for a touchdown, granted, but they're not really moving the ball that much. Malik Neighbors certainly doesn't look like he'll play in this game, probably out for the year. Worst receiving core in the league now, worst skill players in the league, worst offense in the league with a bullet, no offensive line, just no offense at all right now. And Jackson Dart and Scatterbo can only do so much, including Saints run defense is really the only thing good either one of these teams has right now. So that's the one strength, being able to shut down Scatterbo, who's getting like 25, 30 touches a game right now. Giants defense played a little better Sunday. Saints O-line is not great. We could get Tyler Shuck in this game still potentially as well. Happy birthday to Tyler Shuck today, by the way. I think he's like 80 years old now. These are my 2 worst power-rated teams, and I have them like almost dead even. So I think the Saints probably should be favored. We might have to come back if this gets to 3. We might have to make an ugly Saints bet too. But look at Giants games this season. Giants-Cowboys, we watched it. A lot similar to the Sunday night game we just watched. 77 points. Giants' other 3 games, 27 points combined, 31 and 39. So 32 points a game, as long as you're not playing the joke of a Cowboys defense. Brian Dable road unders 59%. Brian Dable in games with a total under 44 has the highest active coaching rate to the under, 24, 14-1 to the under, 63%. So again, under 42.5 at DraftKings, our sponsor. In the 40s, every number matters. So I'm already seeing this at 41 at one book. You want to grab these before they get any lower. It's going to be ugly. That's kind of where we're at with some of these ugly teams and injuries.
I will say this before we get out of here. Next week's schedule has some pure ugliness to it. If I go down a little bit quickly here. So you got Minnesota, Cleveland, Miami, Carolina, Dallas Jets, Giants, New Orleans, Tennessee, Arizona, almost a 10-point spread in that game. Cardinals almost laying 10. I almost couldn't believe it when I saw it. But next week,
I had that circled. I wanted Cards minus 6.5. That was my first hot read if we could get it. And then it opened
10.
back at 9.5. And I was like, okay. Yeah.
10.
Look, if you see me giving out 2 ugly unders on the hot read, that's me doing what you're doing right now and saying, screw you, slate. This slate of games sucks. So let's take some ugly unders. And that's all we can do right now.
10. All right. Again, if you want to tell Brandon's hot read and find the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or go to actionhour.com/bet now. That will do it here on the Action Hour podcast for our NFL Week 4 recap episode presented by DraftKings. Give us a like on the YouTube video before you take off. We really, really appreciate it. And do not forget to download the free award-winning Action Hour app. See more from our Action Hour contributors. Sign up for free Action Hour Pro for immediate notifications every time one of our action experts tracks a pick. Go to actionhour.com/pro. Use the promo code POD20 for $20 off a year of Action Pro. If you're on Twitter, we have an awesome new feature. If you see a bet from any of your favorite action experts or anyone on gambling Twitter, you can now tag @Playbook and tell our bot to build you a bet slip at a book of your choice. It will build it out for you with a quick slip link that opens right up to your sportsbook. So go check it out, our new tool at @Playbook on Twitter and X. We'll be back for Action Island before Monday night's game right here on Action Network's YouTube page, as well as more NFL best bets from Brandon, Raybon, Stuckey's six-pack episode, all the touchdowns and more on the podcast feed next week. Thank you for listening. Good luck with all your bets and enjoy the week.